This has been the most challenging week I've had as a landlord since I started in 2014. And since so many of you are new to landlording or thinking about being a landlord, I'm going to tell you about the 6 different issues I ran into this week that earned it the title of Most Annoying Week. And at the end of this video, assuming landlording still appeals to you, and that is a big if, I'll tell you about a popular trend in the landlording space that I think people should definitely avoid because it could have very scary or uncomfortable implications for you, the landlord. So let's get started. The week began with the renter in our very first rental purchased, yes, in 2014, and that tenant flagged her concerns within an hour of entering the property. So a little context on this place. The property is located in a condo, and yes, I think condo investments make sense sometimes. It is a 1-bed, 1-bath. It is approximately 800 square feet and it is located in Denver. People tend to like this place because it has a doorman, a pool, underground parking, and a really good rooftop deck. And likewise, people sometimes don't like this place because the refrigerator door does not have a handle and the oven door creaks when you open it. So this current renter, Layla, is staying for 70 nights and we sourced her through Airbnb. I received her message while I was in Mexico because I now live in Mexico, which is not only another country, but it is 1,400 miles away from all of our properties. So everything I do has to be done without me being there present. Now, other renters have shared the complaint that Layla was flagging, and it makes sense because when we purchased the property, the issue that she was talking about existed then, and we have ignored it for 11 straight years now. And part of the reason we've ignored it is because when I'm making landlording decisions, I try to frame it or ask myself one of 2 questions before moving forward on replacing or spending money on something. The first question I ask is, would this influence whether or not a renter would choose to rent my place? And the second question is, will this show up in a review? So Layla was flagging the dishwasher. It sometimes collects water in the base and it sometimes appears to not wash dishes very well. And the tenant before her did not complain about this, never brought it up, but the one before the last tenant did. And as I mentioned before, I know that people have commented that the oven creaks and the refrigerator door does not have a handle. But again, these issues have never shown up in a review and the appliances still work as advertised. So to me, there has not been a compelling reason for me to change them out. But now I want to change out the appliances. To begin with, a non-functioning dishwasher is not only something like if a property doesn't have a dishwasher, certain tenants will not rent your place because of that. But also if the dishwasher isn't working, you can expect that to show up in the reviews. So it's already met the threshold. But also Layla is a great tenant to work on this issue with. And the reason Layla seems like a great person, renter, tenant to work on this with is that she's a strong communicator and she's been very reasonable. And because changing out the appliances can actually have some hiccups, one of which we encountered immediately and a second that we encountered almost immediately, we needed to have a communicative tenant through this process for both her to be happy and for us to be happy. So the next step was to go online and look at my options. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but it stressed me out because Costco is very specific that if you, so in this case me, the person ordering messes up the order, it's on you, so me. AKA Costco does not care if the appliance you ordered from them does not fit or if it's gas when it should be electric, etc., etc. Basically, they're not gonna deliver it and then take it back. They shouldn't. Appliances are big and heavy and blah, blah, blah. So I ordered a new refrigerator, a new oven, and a new dishwasher because all of them were old. But the first hiccup here is that she sent me the wrong dimensions the first time. I could tell they were wrong because most appliances have pretty standard sizes and the dimensions she sent weren't aligning with those sizes. So I asked her to remeasure. And this is where I'd like to say a nice and communicative tenant is so important. A, no one wants to be told that they got something wrong, and B, no one wants to measure appliances once, much less twice. So working with someone that won't resist this or lose interest in finalizing the project is important. So the tenant that you work with on this, if you're working with a tenant on this, just be selective about that tenant. Now, before we move on to the second stressful event this week, here is a quick checklist for how to handle appliance switch outs for the future. So first, measure all appliances twice. Second, confirm if the appliance uses gas or electric. Third, if you are in a condo building, confirm the process for turning off water. Fourth, I think it's fourth, if you need multiple parties to finalize the project, make sure your timing is correct. So in this case, we need the plumber to come in the morning of the second Wednesday of the month, and we need the Costco techs, the installation techs, to come in the afternoon of that same day. Fifth, communicate with your tenant what is happening and when. It's also nice to do something for the renter here. Now that might be a slight discount on their rent at the beginning of the month or some kind of goodie, but just an acknowledgement that this is not an inconvenience for them and it is helpful to you. And doing things like that will help your long-term relationship with renters go quite far. If you are new here, welcome. I'm Erin Spradlin. If you've seen anything helpful so far in this video, please like it. This is my channel and it is set up for people that think they may want to rent out a property that they own. They want to diversify their assets and income stream, and they own 5 or fewer properties. I help landlords, so you, launch on the top 3 platforms, get your first tenant, and guide you through your first stay. I'm going to put details in the top comment, description, and on the screen. So if you want help or if you need that push to get started, sign up through that link. The renters in my 4-bedroom, 2-bath, single family home messaged me on Tuesday through Airbnb to let me know that the dryer isn't working. Now, I have a trick for maintenance that I put into my Airbnb listing as well as my long-term leases, and I will explain it in a minute. But first, I want to call out that you should stop thinking about Airbnb as a short-term or vacation rental platform and start thinking about it as a platform for furnished rentals. This mind switch will help you get tenants faster if you are in the long-term furnished rental space. You can see on this rental, they are staying for over 200 nights. And that's not to say Airbnb should be the only platform you should be on for the long-term furnished space, but it is a platform you should be on in addition to other platforms. Now, the maintenance trick I spoke of is that I have my tenants schedule all their own maintenance on the property. And I do this for 2 reasons. The first is that if the tenant doesn't get around to scheduling the work, they don't really care and it doesn't really matter to them. The second is that if someone is coming into the place, so someone that's not me, I want the renter to schedule it for a time that's most convenient for them and to decide one way or the other if they're going to be there for it. This also avoids the back and forth of scheduling, and I have found that repair people are more than happy to send you, the landlord, the invoice afterwards. So it's a way of paying for it and taking care of it without inserting yourself or creating a game of telephone between the maintenance person, the tenant, and yourself. And for this issue, the tenant scheduled the dryer repair. It cost us $90 total, and it is already fixed. So yay, that is what I call a landlording win. A note on this. I think a lot of frustrated landlords don't actually have good systems in place, and that's the real problem. It isn't the renter that's the issue, it's the landlord that is the issue. And I'm flagging this here not to make you feel bad, but just to emphasize to you that you have a lot more control over the landlording process, the renting process, etc., than you as the landlord might think that you have. And you can actually make your landlording experience so much better once you figure out your systems and once you start to pay attention to the patterns of your property and of your renters. So I got a call from Pamela from across the street. She has a perfectly manicured yard and lives directly across from Bryant and his housemates. She left a very polite and very direct message about something that I've told anyone and everyone that will listen to me not to do, to learn from my mistakes. I did this when I didn't know what I was doing, and I have regretted it ever since. And that is to purchase a property with a big yard. And if you have, try to find ways to cut it down. And the reason why you want to avoid a property with a big yard is that your current tenants really don't care about maintaining it. Most of them won't. Some will, but in my experience, the majority won't. Second, your new tenants will care a lot about how it looks. It will be their first impression. And third, yards are expensive and they are only getting more expensive because water is getting more expensive. So Pamela told me that it was growing into an eyesore for the neighborhood. And lest you think this is some anecdote that will devolve into me complaining about Pamela being a nosy neighbor, blah, 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 that is not where this is going. Pamela was direct, Pamela was polite, Pamela was measured, Pamela had a real concern. And she wanted me to know that the yard looked bad. And when I saw the photos, it confirmed that it did in fact look quite bad. So I called Pamela back. I thanked her for calling me directly and told her to feel free to call or text me for any future issues. Now, I probably would not tell every neighbor or renter to feel free to call or text me with every issue that concerned them, but Pamela has lived across the street from that rental property for 4 years, and she has never complained or called me about anything. So if a neighbor like that is saying something is wrong, I definitely want to hear her out, and I want to hear her out for a number of reasons. First, I want to be a good neighbor. It's important. Second, I want to know early if there's an issue. That will make my life easier. Third, I want people around my investments talking to me about my investments, and you should too. This one was not the most headache inducing, but it is maybe the most annoying issue this week, or it started annoying, and then I will say my attitude changed on it a little bit as I thought through it more. So I woke up Thursday morning to an email from the tenant that lives in our 3-bed, 3-bath single family home. He is staying there for a year with his girlfriend, who is a nurse. I know a lot of you are interested in getting nurse rentals, so the two of them are staying there for a year. And he has been there for 4 months already. And he's always been a little bit picky about things. Now, a picky renter is not the worst thing on earth. While they are quite high maintenance, they also take really good care of your property. And I think the way to vet whether or not you'll like working with a high maintenance tenant is just to look at the patterns and decide if they will be unreasonable or making demands that you think are going to lead to a difficult long-term relationship. And that's not how I felt about this tenant. I felt that he was particular, but I did not feel that he was unreasonable. That said, I didn't love that he mentioned multiple times in his email that the neighborhood was maybe not as safe as he thought it was, because we have different perspectives on that. I lived in that neighborhood for 4 years. I grew up in that community, so I have a perception of that neighborhood as being safe. And he also told me that he drove the neighborhood ahead of time and loved it. So I took some umbrage with the idea that the neighborhood was not safe. However, what happened is that his motorcycle was stolen from the street that our house is located on, or our property is located on. He then asked us to help him pay for a security system, and I put up a poll on YouTube about this, and I think 70% of you said no, and I assume that is because the motorcycle was stolen from the street, which we have nothing to do with. That said, we did throw him $125 toward his security system, which he said cost him $500 total. Let me explain why we did that. So the same thought process behind the statement, happy wife, happy life, applies to landlords and tenants as well. Although it is problematic that a wife is going to make your whole life happy, or that a wife is your tenant. But let's not dwell on that. Let's just say that the implications of that statement are that once you figure out your relationship with someone else, you can make your life happier because you've kind of figured out where there are snags and what lead to bigger issues. And that is also true as a landlord with renters, especially your long-term renters. And in this situation, we may have to deal with bigger issues in the future, and those issues may genuinely be the fault of the landlord, meaning our fault. And so we want these tenants to remember that we cared and that we threw them a little cash when they were scared and when they were legitimately inconvenienced by having their property stolen in the area where our house is. So yes, we didn't owe them anything, but we also want them to feel safe in our property. And we want them to know that when they tell us something, we are listening to them. And finally, we care about our tenants. They are the people that help us pay our bills. And while I don't believe in being deferential to tenants or to anyone, I think it is important and very useful to landlords to stop seeing renters as the person that's going to trash their house, and to start seeing renters as the people that are directly supporting and helping you achieve your money and retirement goals, because that's really what they are. And when you change your mind about that, it changes often how you approach a lot of your landlording decisions in ways that not only help your renters, but I think also help you as the landlord. This is another situation where I have the language written into my Airbnb listing and also into my lease. I had a client in November that directly had to point his renter back to this language to have them pay him, so the landlord, directly for the renter's mistake. And this situation happened with Layla. So again, the tenant with the dishwasher situation, she locked herself out of the unit. Now, most units will have smart locks, but even though rentals with smart locks don't have keys, renters still occasionally lock themselves out because the batteries die. So in this case, it was just the keys. She left all of them in the unit, and the door then has an auto locking mechanism. And Layla was super apologetic and just paid. I then asked her to make 3 copies of the keys and to make sure they were all left behind with the front desk. And while this could be a security risk, for this particular building, because we have door people in the lobby that hand over keys and pay attention to who is coming and going, and there are cameras everywhere, if she were to ever return when she wasn't supposed to be there, this would be flagged pretty quickly, so I feel fine about this. We have reached the weekend, yay! This is the final thing that happened this week, and if you've noticed how mundane these issues are, you're right. Being a landlord is usually not some crazy event. It's usually a lot of mundane conversations back and forth, if anything. A lot of times it's nothing. So for Saturday, my big headache is that the neighbor behind me has some trees that go over our driveway and over our garage. And so he just wanted us to let the tenant know and to maybe have the renter move their vehicles from that area because they were going to have the trees trimmed. So for Sunday, since I don't have any more scandalous / mundane examples to give you around landlording, we're just going to talk about the most consistently troublesome or hard issue for most landlords in my experience. And the reason why this issue exists is because finding a person that is reliable, good, affordable, and consistent in this space can be difficult. That said, if you reach out to a local real estate meetup, they will likely have good suggestions for this person. Now, what am I talking about? I am talking about a cleaner. So in addition to getting a recommendation from someone else, another great way to help yourself and help the cleaner is to provide the cleaner with a checklist and to pay attention to any issues that new tenants are flagging when they enter the property, and then add those issues to the checklist that you then hand off to the cleaner. Okay, we have made it. We are at the end. This is the time to ask yourself if you can put up with this level of annoyance for a full week, and your answer should tell you whether or not you think you can landlord. And most of you, I think, can landlord. I think if you're watching videos on YouTube about how to be a landlord, you'll be a good landlord because it indicates you care about being a good landlord. I also say this, or I've said this in the past, if you have had kids, if you have had a boss you hated, if you have gotten a 4-year degree, or if you have hosted Thanksgiving dinner, you have already done something that is substantially harder than landlording. Now that said, I want to close out this video by talking about when you should avoid being a landlord because it could have detrimental effects to your financial future. So there's a trend in real estate in 2025, which has been happening for a few years now. It really started to show up with Airbnb, and it is called rental arbitrage. And what this means is you are renting out someone else's property, furnishing it, and then re-renting it out on a platform. And you don't even have to furnish it. You just maybe need to market it better with the idea that you're going to make more money than what your lease is. So you sign a year lease and you're banking that you're going to make $200 or $300 more a month than what you are paying. And James and I did this 10 years ago when we were getting started, and it worked for us, but that's because not everyone and their mother was doing furnished rentals or rental arbitrage, and now so many more people are. There's just way more competition. Also, rents are down. So the amount that you could make was much higher back then, and so the risk wasn't as much. But for most people in 2025, this is a genuinely awful idea. And that's because in a best case scenario, you might make $200 to $300 more a month on it. And I think that there are far easier, far less risky ways to make $200 to $300 per month than to sign a year-long lease and to also buy furniture for this property. Second, you are going to be stressed a lot if it doesn't rent or if you have big vacancies and you are locked into a lease. Because in that situation, not only are you not making $200 or $300 a month, but you're losing $1,000 or more a month. So if you decide to do arbitrage or you are thinking about it, please, please, please do your research first. And the reason why this advice is different for property owners is because they already own the place and they have equity in the property. So their risk is way lower and their potential gains are far higher. Okay, lecture over. Now, if you want a video for why I think that furnished rentals are the future of the rental market, I recommend checking out this video here. Thanks.